Hi, my name is Justin Inman, and this is my Cassutt 111M. Ever since I can remember, I've wanted to fly and design airplanes and test airplanes, and one of the things that caught my interest early on was these crazy people that fly around pylons at Reno. I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to be one of them. Reading old sport aviation magazines about people flying and building Cassutts and air racing Cassutts and shoestrings in the 50s and 60s and into the 70s and 80s at different Formula Air races all around the country. It really caught my interest and made me want to have a Cassutt that I could test and ultimately fly at Reno eventually. Testing this airplane in the beginning of 2021, after doing the first flight in February of 2021. Pylon Racing Seminar wasn't really on my radar. With the Lycoming engine of this airplane, fuel injection, it doesn't meet Formula One class rules, so I figured that I wouldn't be able to use this airplane in its current configuration to do anything air race related, which was fine to me. I wanted to be able to fly the airplane and test it and enjoy it as a sport airplane. Just having an airplane like this to experiment on was cool enough for me. A friend, Scott Holmes, who flies in the Formula One class, reached out to me in mid-April of 2021 and asked me if the Formula One class is okay with letting you fly your Lycoming powered Cassutt at Pylon Racing Seminar, would you be interested? And I gave him absolutely, yes, I would be interested. It would make my childhood dreams come true, to be cliche. So the only issue is that the deadline for the paperwork was a week away. So I scrambled to get all my documentation together, my application together, paid the fee, got everything submitted, except for insurance, which I figured out a couple weeks later. And during that process, I was still 13 hours away. I was half of my phase one flight test time away from actually having the airplane done. Because in February, when I started flying the airplane, I didn't have this deadline of first week of June, because I wanted to ferry it to Reno to go race, or to learn how to race. But here I am, middle of April, and I have 13 hours to fly off on an experimental airplane that I don't know super well, but I don't want to rush the flight test process. I want to be able to prove the airplane in a way that makes me confident that it's safe to not only take on a cross country, but be able to race and enjoy for a lot of years. And also build my skills to the point where I could do anything with the airplane that I want. So that was a challenge. It may not, 13 hours in a month and a half may not seem like a lot, but this is the Mojave Desert in the spring. I think out of the, 45-ish days between when I found out and applied for PRS and when I actually flew the airplane to PRS, over half of those days had wind that was in excess of 20-30 knots. With my skill level in the airplane and with how far forward the CG is in the airplane, how light the tail is, I didn't feel comfortable flying in those sorts of winds for a while. So being able to finish the flight test phase was a challenge. I ended up finishing, I flew the last flight in phase one the weekend before I headed out for Pylon Racing Seminar, signed the airplane out of phase one, sent my phase one sign off up to the Reno Air Racing Association, and then a couple days later hopped in the airplane and flew the hour and 40 minutes nonstop from Indian up to Reno. I didn't really know what to expect since I hadn't been to Reno in many years. I've never flown at Reno. My friend Greg and I crewed for a couple friends with their RVs a few years back in sport class. So I had never had any interaction with the Formula One crew and didn't really know what was going on. But before I went up to PRS, I practiced all the maneuvers that I needed to know in order to qualify as a Formula pilot, and just made sure that I flew a lot in my airplane. When I landed at PRS, I had just about 28 hours in the airplane. So if you back that up from the 26 and a half that it took to do phase one and add the hour and a half that it took to fly up to Reno, that was the time that I had outside of phase one was a cross country up to Reno. So Pylon Racing Seminar was an incredible experience. It made my little kid dreams come true. Being able to hang out with people who have been in Formula One air racing for many years, who are very knowledgeable, being able to pick their brain and learn how to be a safe air racer and a competent air racer, and be able to think about things in ways that helped me to develop mental tools that would assist me in making good decisions on the race course. My biggest fears going into Pylon Racing Seminar were that I wouldn't be able to do it because it looks simple, but I imagine it's not simple, and that I would mess something up somehow. But the course of the instruction throughout the week and making friends with the people who have been doing this for years was very confidence building. I ended up being able to qualify as a Formula One pilot on the first day of Pylon Racing Seminar in this airplane, and then the following days of PRS I was able to get a lot of laps in on the track, which it was not lost on me. The gravity of the moment. I thought about it many times, flying on the backstretch, getting ready to turn into pylon 4, 5, 6, and then looking up at the home pylon with the flag on top of it, and people standing next to the home pylon that says Reno on it, and thinking back over the years and years that I had dreamed about being able to fly a Cassutt, and the 6 years ago that Greg surprised me with a trip to go up and get this Cassutt out of a hangar that hadn't flown in years. Being able to drive up just over a year ago and pick up this Cassutt project that I hadn't touched throughout all of college with my good friend, and then bring it down here and then work my butt off through what was a crazy pandemic year for everybody, and culminated with a really cool flight test program and being able to fly up right next to the home pylon at Reno. It was an incredible experience, really a full circle, sort of end of a chapter in life experience, and I'm just really excited to be able to fly this airplane and develop it more and see what the future holds for this airplane and any others to come.